We have some major breaking news as it has been announced that Mike Wallace has been disallowed and will not run the 2025 Daytona 500. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to the video. As I just said a second ago, we got some pretty massive major breaking news this evening as it has been announced that Mike Wallace will not be allowed to run the 2025 Daytona 500 according to NASCAR. Here's a report by Aaron A.J. Englund. He reports, breaking, just got off the phone with Mike Wallace. NASCAR has informed him that he will not be participating in this year's Daytona 500 due to recent inactivity as a driver. This is absolutely huge. Remember, we talked about this on the channel a couple months ago. It was broken, I believe, by Kenny Wallace. I'm pretty sure that Mike Wallace was going to be attempting to run the 2025 Daytona 500 with NBM Motorsports. But it was very, very controversial because Mike Wallace, one, is 65 years old. And number two, the last time Mike Wallace had competed on an oval was the 2015 Daytona 500, where he actually made the field and had a really good chance and opportunity. Mike Wallace, like I said, was 65 years old, and a lot of people were really questioning why he was getting the chance and opportunity, because the last time Mike Wallace also competed in NASCAR was 5 years ago in 2020, but that was on a road course at the Daytona road course track. Now, Mike Wallace, I think, would have certainly been very, very capable to have a chance and opportunity to make the field. Yes, I know NBM Motorsports is not the most competitive equipment in the world, but I think that Mike Wallace would have had a really good chance and opportunity to make the field because NBM's done some crazy stuff in the past, and we've seen him make the Daytona 500 at that point. Now the big question is, and I think a lot of it has to also do a little bit with Carl Long. NASCAR's had a little bit of a bad history with Carl Long over the years, especially with some of the sponsorship stuff that happened back in 2018. I think that definitely played a little bit of role in this as well. Had Mike Wallace been approved to run the Daytona 500, and let's see, he actually made the Daytona 500 this year, Mike Wallace would have been the second oldest driver to make the Daytona 500 behind Mark Thompson, who made it in 2018 at the age of 66 years old. Now, continuing on with this at this point, what does NBM Motorsports do? Do they just decide to go ahead and not run the Daytona 500 2025? Because they had said publicly, right, that they were going to run the 2025 Daytona 500, but with now Mike Wallace not being an option at this point, what do you do if you're in NBM Motorsports position? Do you go ahead and try to get Timmy Hill? I would have to think they're probably going to go get Timmy Hill or David Starr. David Starr was supposed to run a few Xfinity Series starts for the team in their competition this year. Maybe you try to pick up David Starr, who I think is 57 or 58 at this point, so probably David Starr would be the best option to go with, or get Timmy Hill, who I think would be another really good option, or go get someone in the Ford camp, right, like a Sheldon Creed, like a Sam Mayer, give them an opportunity in the shot, or get Harrison Burr behind the wheel. That would certainly be interesting for sure. But I think this definitely is kind of crazy that NASCAR had originally approved Mike Wallace to run the 2025 Daytona 500, but now he's not eligible to run the Daytona 500, which I think is absolutely wild. I kind of understand from NASCAR's perspective, though, why they basically kind of allowed him at first and then changed it up and said no. But at the same token, at the same time, why would you originally approve it and then change it, in my opinion? I just don't completely understand it, and I don't agree with changing it up after time. I get that Mike Wallace has not competed in a long time, and that's understandable, and especially since majority of the NASCAR Cup Series drivers have not ran since the last time Mike Wallace competed in the Cup Series. I think only 11 or 12 drivers had competed in Cup competition before, so I kind of understand why they wanted to kind of do that for safety and all that kind of stuff. The same token, at the same time, why change it up? So at this particular moment, let's take a look at the Daytona 500 entrance with this update. I would have to think NBM Motorsports is still going to try to run the Daytona 500 in 2025. We already know, of course, that Haley Cashinevas will drive the number 91 car for Trackhouse Racing in Project 91. We do think, of course, he's locked in regardless whether it's gets in with that provisional clause they've got in with the open exemption clause or gets in on speed. Jimmy Johnson is expected to run the Daytona 500 in 2025 with his own team and organization. Mark Truex Jr., we're still kind of waiting on at this point. We think it's going to be a Tricon car. I know David Gillen went on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio not too long ago and said that that was not going to be very likely, but I do think that Tricon will be the team name, but Joe Gibbs is going to be building the car. NY Racing, we know, is confirmed to be having a car for J.J. Yeley this year. There are still some other rides that have some question marks at this point. Rico Racing is expected, from what I know, they're expected to run a second car in this year's Daytona 500. I'm not quite sure who's going to be the driver at this point if they do truly end up running a second car this year. Corey LaJoie could be the driver of that car, but it doesn't sound like LaJoie may even be with the program in 2025 at all. We'll just kind of have to wait and see on that front. And then there's some other teams out there like Amerivet, they're kind of up in the air according to Bob. Colleague, they're not expected to run another car in this year's Daytona 500. And there's a couple other teams, like I could see Front Row fielding a car in this year's Daytona 500 for like a Chandler Smith, who's joining the Truck Series program in 2025. And there's some other rides that still could get announced, but literally about a month away, 34 days to be exact, from the Daytona 500, we've got updates. So again, we all thought that he was going to be running the Daytona 500 2025, that being Mike Wallace, and now it's not going to be happening this year. And while I think it's unfortunate that this is happening at this point, I do understand, like I said, a little bit from NASCAR's perspective, but I'm also a little bit disappointed at the same time as well. So I think it would have been definitely really cool to see Mike Wallace pretty much being upset at this point to make the Daytona 500 had he been able to qualify his way in this year. So while I think it's unfortunate to see this news come up, I'm not completely surprised. I was a little surprised originally they approved it first, but I do think and completely understand why they decided to go ahead and do this. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with the rest of the entries for the 2025 Daytona 500, what ends up getting officially confirmed and announced at this point. But we're not that far away from the Daytona 500. We're 34 days away to be exact at this point, and we'll see what ends up happening in regards to the remainder of the 2025 Daytona 500 lineup. There's still some big news coming on that front here very, very soon. I think some other teams should be announcing some stuff. Again, RCR is one team that I would have to think will probably field the car in the 500 at this point for Austin Hill. We'll just have to wait and see what drivers end up getting officially announced for this race, and let's see what other drivers get confirmed for the Daytona 500 down the road. We also got some Kurt Busch news about him running the Race of Champions, which is really, really cool. We'll have some other news to talk about here in this coming days. We'll probably have more thoughts on the news video coming out tomorrow. So that is going to be today's special breaking news episode of Mike Wallace not being allowed to run the 2025 Daytona 500. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Link description below that, and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. What's your reaction to Mike Wallace not being allowed to run the 2025 Daytona 500? Are you upset about this, or do you think NASCAR made the right decision not allow Mike Wallace to run the Daytona 500? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, we're going to have a NASCAR news video discussing news over the course of the last day or so. There's been a lot of breaking news over the last day. We got to talk about stuff like Kurt Busch and all that. Then on Wednesday, if there's not much news that comes out, there should be a special video dropping around the Haas factory team. And there's going to be a lot of news breaking throughout this week that should be dropping. We should be getting some news on some paint schemes potentially, and some other teams making some announcements for 2025 as well. We'll have content on people like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Connor Zilic, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Alex Bowman, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Carson Quaffle, Junior Motorsports, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed, all the good stuff. Harrison Burton as well, Eric Almirola, Chandler Smith, you name it. There'll be a lot of that great content dropping as we get close to the start of the year and the season. Looking forward to 2025 getting underway. We got a lot of content dropping for you guys really soon as we get close to the start of the year and the season. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.